We're done here. Welcome to the June 4th meeting of the City of Evanston Human Service Committee. We have all committee members present, so we do have a quorum. First, I'd like to have approval of the minutes of May 17th, 2012. May 7th. Sorry,
I move
2012.
to approve the minutes of our meeting on May 7th.
And I second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. First item for consideration is a review of police complaints. We have, I see one speaker, Betty Sue Esther.
Good evening, Chairman and Human Services Committee members. Should I allow her to speak first, Ms. Esther? Or do I speak first? I'm Commander Hartley in place for Chief Eddington.
I think typically we have the citizens speak first, so that you can answer any questions you might have.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Betty Esther, and I stay at 2031 Church Street. I reviewed the police crime report and everything. Interesting. There is some dates on it that need to be corrected. One that says 12/19/2012. There was an incident that was disposed of on May the 23rd, 2012. The first date need to be corrected because December the 19th, 2012 haven't got here yet, unless I'm missing something. The other one is in reference to DI 1133, and I read it and looked at the application that people fill out and sign. There need to be care made that when whoever is sanitizing these, that there be a better job of sanitizing these here application, because you should take your time and study it long enough and look at it different ways, read and figure out who made this application. This one wasn't hard for me to do because this one was mine. So, but I wouldn't have known it was there because someone called me and told me that they saw it, so that's how I knew. I went, oh, yes, it is mine. The other thing is that, and one thing that the police citizen, when we did this, you have two committees. You have the Police Advisory Board Committee and the Citizen Police Advisory Committee. I was involved in the second committee, Be Informed, and where we had set out certain standards and things that we hoped would be put in place, and we are the group that kind of evolved out of that, called the Citizen Network of Protection, is still working on, and that is to have an independent police review. On page 11 of that report, and it states, and this is a summary, I guess, from whoever writes up the summary, and from my understanding is the executive secretary. That first paragraph, I did not say that, but that just goes to prove what we have been saying all along, that these statements and what people have to say should be heard by the committee, because when you read this here, it gives a different impression as to what the complaint was all about and what was involved. And here it says that was saying the police was abusing his power. That statement was never made by me, not in writing or verbal. Never did say the police abused his power. Just more or less talked about how he did his search. And it was quite graphic when I told the sergeant and showed her what he did and everything when, he did not rub or pat him down. So that wasn't correct. So that's why we felt, and we still feel, that the police should be, there should be an independent police review board, because then things like this would not happen. And while on the subject, and I was kind of confused, was thought that 2 questions I need to give to you so you can pass on to the Board of Trustees when y'all have y'all meeting, because you asked for questions at the last council meeting. One, what funds are paying for the audit? Are they coming out of town's fund or the city general revenue fund? And 2, will there be an open discussion about the new board resolutions and rules and things that the Board of Trustees is trying to set up? Will that be an open discussion between the electors and the board before those are implemented? So those are the questions for future meeting.
Thank you. Oh.
Ms. Esther, could you, if you don't mind, the first corrections that you made, can you give me the number on that one? Which one did that come out of? I'm sorry.
It was in that, the long list of report where they give you first the CRs and then the DIs, and then they give you the date of the incident.
Right, I got
and
that.
And then the date that the investigation was
The
completed.
initiated date, 12/19, I see. Okay.
Right.
All right, I got it.
So that
Thank you.
probably is 12/19/2011.
Yeah, okay. And that's on page 8, just in case, if you need it. Okay.
The next item for discussion is H2, policy criteria for naming public places.
Do you want Commander Harley to respond?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Commander Harley, if you have a response to anything, please.
Hello again. Just that I will correct that date, and also I will go back and review that departmental inquiry 11-33 and address Ms. Esther's concerns and contact her at a later date. And also take the information back to Chief Eddington. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Police complaints.
I'm sorry.
Do you have any other?
Does the committee have any other questions about police complaints before we move on to the next discussion item? Thank you. The next item is H2 for discussion, policy criteria for naming public places and designating honorary street name signs. I believe we've got a presentation or a little discussion by Judy Fisk, Alderman Fisk.
Well, it's not a presentation. I made this reference because I had actually 2 groups asking for honorary place name signs, and when I talked to staff and also looked at the application form with the instructions, it says the purpose of the program, the honorary street name sign program, allows citizens the opportunity to honor people who have made significant contributions to the city. The program is administered by the city's Advisory Committee on Public Place Names through the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. Street names will be displayed for a period of 10 years. No more than 1 designation may be awarded in each ward per year. The portion of a street so designated will be 1 block long. Final approval is granted by the Evanston City Council. And the way I read this was that our honorary street name program does not apply to institutions. It applies only to people. And when I talked to staff, and I hope Mr. Gaynor will come up and speak to us on this, my understanding from talking to staff was that it was living people.
Right.
And so all of this is fine with me, but I have, just to let you all know, I've had a request from 2 organizations who were asking for signs, and I have told them both no, because it doesn't fit the criteria. So I wanted to bring this to the committee to ask, just for discussion, to find out whether this was something that we needed to review. Mr. Gaynor, am I right in what I've just said? Am I
Yes.
correct? Okay.
I have one question regarding cost for implementing another honorary namings program. Do you have any idea what it costs for a particular installation in terms of staff time? And I understand we'd be limiting these to maybe 10 a year or 9 a year, something like that, one per alderman. Each alderman having one. I mean, that's not a huge number, but that was the first thing that came to mind as far as just wanting to know a little more about the program.
Yes, the program right now costs about $300 per, and that's for 3 signs and labor.
Alderman Holmes?
Well, I would support the idea of having the possibility of doing institutions. However, I think that there has to be some guidelines for that. And the reason why is because I've been asked in my ward, and of course I said no because I learned very early that it was for people and live people at that. I think that if an institution over, and I hate to put a number on it, but I'm going to just start out with saying 50 years or something like that, I think that that to me, warrants, some kind of recognition. But I just don't think that we should just do it because it's an institution. I really don't. And so I would support it as long as we had some reasonable guidelines, in terms of saying maybe it's their 100th anniversary or 50th anniversary or whatever, something like that I could see. I know we made an exception. I'm trying to remember how we did it for the Y, for the Emerson Street Y, by doing that. And I don't remember how that happened, but it happened. So I think that we need to have criteria to make sure that the guidelines are there. And, and then people will know. We make it known, and then people will, have it to follow.
Alderman Fisk?
Yeah, and I guess I'm okay leaving it as it is, as long as we have other ways of honoring, institutions or not-for-profits, and maybe banners or a historic plaque or something like that. But in the downtown especially, we have a number of organizations that have been here much longer than that. And since it's a block long, a number of these are on the same block, and they're for 10 years. So you're telling someone, oh, you can't do this for another decade. And so the more I thought about it, the more problems I saw with it. And I'm wondering if we need to think more broadly about what opportunity there is for groups. And as I'm thinking back on it, I think wasn't the first one for Jack Korshak? I mean, former Alderman Korshak.
That's a person, though.
Yeah, but very long ago. So it really was from the beginning sort of like a Lifetime Achievement Award for an individual for contributions to the community. So I guess I'm a little bit confused about what the right thing is to do.
As a point of information, the resolution in the ordinance, it's Citizens Advisory Committee on Public Place and Names, so it's public. So if we went to private institutions, we would probably have to, I would suggest maybe the law department would want to create a new ordinance that would have the criteria that I think you're talking about if you wanted to move forward, which would be more private. So if it was a company that had been here, so that you're differentiating, because this is for public places. So this could be like a park if it wasn't already named, or the streets. And those are honorary, as you pointed out, Alderman Fisk, and the ordinance calls for it for 10 years.
Are you talking?
Was it always for 10 years?
Yes. No, in the beginning, it wasn't. In the beginning, the very, very
So 2
beginning, I
years.
believe it was just for 2 years or something like that. But that was changed, I believe, in '96.
No, actually, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I can find
Oh, okay.
when it was amended, but
It was in our pack, I think.
It was in the packet. I thought it said '96 was when it was changed, but yeah, you're right, it was in the packet. I just want to comment back. The ordinance was originally in '88, I believe, and then it was amended in '96. And I believe that's when the 10 years was added. I thought, maybe I guess, Alderman Fisk, I wanted to respond to what you said about the downtown area. I think that, if you come up with something else, I certainly, could support that as well. But I'm just thinking that in the downtown area, I think people would enjoy, as you walk around and you could see, a contribution from the Lake Street Baptist Church, which was the first, I forgot how old it is, but it's a long time, or our Second Baptist, which is, I know where one of the requests came from. Those churches have been there for, 100 years or more. So I can understand that people would enjoy seeing, whether it's, I'm not so sure about the banners anymore, but, some kind of historic plaque or, a street sign. And if it was a historic plaque, there wouldn't have to be a time limit on it, maybe. That could just be put on the building.
Well, there's a historic plaque on Who's Drugstore, which is really cool because, a lot of people don't remember Who's Drugstore.
I do.
And my mom worked there in high school. And, and I think that's really kind of neat because it is a permanent reminder, as you said, and not just for 10 years. And there are places in the downtown where you do have, competing. So maybe if we did an organizational, like for a nonprofit or a church for maybe 5 years so that another organization could come in, especially in the downtown area.
But if it's in their own building, it wouldn't be necessary if you're going to put up a plaque on it.
No, if you're going to put up a plaque, that's going to be there forever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
But for an honorary street name, if we did something less than 10 years, maybe people would feel they would have a shot at it before too much time elapsed.
You can always, and I'm thinking about now Foster and Dewey, if I'm not mistaken, Foster and Dewey. There's one side goes for Bishop Moody and Faith Temple. The other side goes for Price. So there's ways that you can do it, so you don't have to wait for 10 years to give it to someone else. Because the black can go, 2 different ways or 3 different ways. So there's a way to do that, isn't it, Doug? I remember. Yeah.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The discussion's kind of reminding me of a couple of previous discussions we've had, and we're talking about including artificial entities in our street sign honoring program, similar to the resolution about the Citizens United, whether artificial entities should have a right under the First Amendment. But I'm sure that whatever the sign policy, honorary street sign policy, will try to find a balance between avoiding excessive sign pollution, and I think that's what the regulation is. Not crossing the line into advertising, and at what point are we advertising nonprofit institutions, and what point are we honoring them? And then obviously honoring those local living Evanstonians and some institutions. But frankly, some of those signs will stay up much longer than fire hydrants stay painted a particular color. So 10 years is a long time.
Alderman Braithwaite.
I just have a quick question for Mr. Gaynor. Last year we did a naming for the Emerson Street Y. And did we do a street change or just a plaque for that location?
It was an honorary street sign that was which was put up.
Yeah, and we didn't have any issues or problems with that, right?
Yeah, we.
Okay, next question.
Does anyone else have any comment?
I think my issue was that I'm reading the instructions, and the instructions are very specific, And I have institutions who have asked, and from my read, it looks like they don't apply, and
So are you looking for a motion to?
no,
make a change?
I really wanted to have a discussion to find out what, other committee members really felt about this, and whether you're having the same experience I'm having, and whether you think there ought to be a change, or whether this is something that's specific to my ward, and I'll just go on dealing with it literally.
If I could say something before Alderman Holmes, I do agree with Alderman Holmes that there has to be a very selective criteria for doing this to make a very special thing. And I think to that extent I could support it. Otherwise, I think there would just be too many competing organizations for a very small amount of recognition that we're going to plan to offer. So I do think it's, as the Emerson Y was a significant 125th anniversary to honor, that was very important. So there is somewhat of precedent there. Alderman Holmes?
Well, I was just going to say, I would love for you, Alderman Fisk, to maybe expand a little bit more on this whole historical plaque. I like that idea, I really do, because it's permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people and organizations would like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that even better than I do the street
Mm-hmm.
signage. I really do. I mean, as far as organizations are concerned.
Well, if you haven't seen it, and I don't know who put this, I don't know who put the plaque up at whose, but if you haven't seen it, go take a look at it, because it's really nice.
Whose is at the corner of
Of
Clark and Sherman.
Right.
Alderman Grover?
Yeah, if I may,
not there
Alderman Fisk, it
anymore.
was Second Baptist Church that requested.
Mhm.
What was the other? You said there were a couple.
Mather Lifeways.
Yeah.
There's a nonprofit institution.
Right.
Anyone else? Thank you. I think this is just for discussion. We can continue it if we like. It did raise a lot of questions, and I think there's certainly another direction it sounds like we might be even more interested in pursuing. So hopefully we can bring this back, and in the meantime, sort of flesh out the idea of a permanent plaque for different organizations that reach a milestone birthday.
Could I also, I know it's not appropriate for us to make a reference to like the Preservation Commission, but I would like to ask staff to talk to the Preservation Commission about historical markers and how we might pursue plaques that are on a piece of property permanently. Because I think you're right. I think that's a way of honoring an institution forever, and not just, you can have this sign for 10 years and then we're going to take it down. I think that's a very cool idea. Can we talk about this next time?
Yes.
When we get information?
Sure, we can get some more information. If we're satisfied, we can have another discussion next month.
Yeah, well, if we could ask, maybe we'd ask the staff to look into it farther to see
Sure.
if there's other communities that do it, or, whatever, that we could get some more information on. I think would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, do you want this to come back for July, the July session
Does that
meeting?
sound okay, Mr. Gaynor? Next, we have items for consideration. I'd quickly like to talk about the township bills, but then since we have so many people here to speak tonight about noise, Cultural Arts Center, maybe move that up to the second position. And I know that one person has a presentation as well. So is there a motion to approve the Township of Evanston May 2012 monthly bills?
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions for our township people in present? I have none. All those in favor? Oh.
Aye.
We can pass the bill. We can
Okay.
pass it, and I'll ask my question in response to the speaker. So we'll.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. Alderman Braithwaite?
To the chair, I do have a question, and I think one of the speakers did ask the question about the audit. And I do remember the vote, but I don't remember who was supposed to pay for that. Was that supposed to come from the township's budget or the city's budget? I think that was the question that she asked.
Right. That, I don't think was determined, since it was,
And did we set a,
right. It was
and
an
did we set a
unfunded
dollar
mandate.
amount?
Actually, there was one speaker signed up to speak to township issues. Bernice Walker, is that?
I was gonna-
I don't know, that was the only township speaker, but, okay. Assessor Wilson? Would you like to come up to the microphone?
Thank you, Chairman Tendem. I just wanted to make a comment about what the assessor's office has been doing the last month. I just wanted to say that we did certificate of errors from May 30th to June 30th. We have issued over and will return over $24,000 to our taxpayers that have come in for certificate of errors. And one taxpayer is receiving over $16,000 from 2007 through 2010 for the long-time occupancy exemption that they did not receive. So I think for working hard for our taxpayers and trying to save them money. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to answer my question.
Oh, you have a question?
Well, I did. I
Right.
posed the question.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I think there was a question regarding the Township Board's action a week or so ago regarding an audit. My understanding of the Township's Board direction to me was to move forward with a request for proposals on an audit. There was no specific dollar amount mentioned. My plan would be to come back to the Township Board with those proposals and dollar amounts when that's available. We're hoping to have the RFP done over the course of the month of June, so hopefully have it out the 1st of July. We'll be in touch. Mr. Swinkowski, if my staff is going to take the lead, we'll be in touch with the assessor and the township supervisor to work together on that RFP, hopefully then have back to the Township Board before the August recess with proposals. So my guess is these types of audits can cost, anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000. I think we'll be very careful in the scope of work to be as narrow and focused as possible and try to keep those dollars to a minimum.
We're talking about an operational program audit rather than a...
Right. Not a financial audit.
That's correct.
Thank you. So next, I'd like to move up item HH4. And
There was not a vote taken.
I'm sorry?
There was not a vote taken on the bills. There was motion. It wasn't voted on.
That was voted.
We did.
HH4, Resolution 39R12, authorizing the city manager to adjust tenant lease conditions at the Noyes Center Cultural Arts Center as of January 1st, 2013, addressing funding of future capital projects at the center and recognition of the Noyes Tenants Association. I know there are a number of people in the audience who would like to speak to this, and I believe Leslie Brown, you also have would like to present. The first three names on the list are Faye Kaiser, Sarah, Sarah, and Ken Arlen. If you'd come up in that order and speak. Yes. Give us your name and address, and then you get 3 minutes to make your statement.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad that you're all here. And my name is Faye Kaiser, and I'm a tenant at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. And I have Studio 218, which is called the Voice Studio. And I'm so glad that I'm here and members of the Tenants Association, newly formed yesterday. We're very happy we're here. I want to thank, first of all, Wally and Doug for working to promote the arts in Evanston. And I especially want to thank Wally for helping us form a tenants board, which gives us the power to work with the Piven Theater and the city in voicing our concerns for the needs, both for the success of all of the artists at the building and embracing the Piven's desire for expansion, which Leslie will let you know. Tomorrow will be our first meeting with Leslie, and she has to answer to a board, and now we have a tenants board, and I am proposing on my own, but I hope that the rest of the tenants agree, that perhaps both boards could get together and we could work on getting all of our needs met in the building with the city. What that simply means is, as one space expands, there may be a possibility that some tenants have to move out of the building and or move to other spaces. And to avoid all of us freaking out about what's going to happen to our future, we thank Wally for giving us the opportunity to work together. I would urge the powers to be that you would take your time in working out the renovation, as exciting as it is, and give the tenants board a chance to meet with Leslie and perhaps some of the members of their board so that we work together, because what makes the Noise Cultural Center so marvelous is the fact that simple artists that decide to paint or draw, or I noticed these beautiful pictures on the wall, without the artists, drama, theater, dancing, sculptures, we are a really sorry society if we don't all come together at the Noise and work to make it the very best renovation in the world, and keeping the new and the old and preserving the history of the Noise Cultural Arts Center. Thank you.
Thank you. So Sarah, I'm sorry, I still didn't. Thank you. Can you spell your name for us?
Piepmeier. I'm in Studio B11 at Noise Arts Center, and I would like to second what Faye Kaiser has said, and to defer the rest of my comments until after everyone else has spoken.
Okay, thank you. Ken Arlen?
Chairman Tandem, would it also be possible to defer my comments until after the presentation that we're going to see today?
Certainly. So, Leslie Brown, would you like to go ahead and do your presentation? Okay. Mr. Manager?
Thank you. If I could just make a brief staff report on the item that's before you, and then I think it would be appropriate for Ms. Brown to make a presentation, because I think there's a certain amount of context to these discussions. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good evening. You have before you Resolution 39R12, which would authorize the city manager to implement proposed changes to the Noise Cultural Arts Center tenant lease conditions as of January 1st, 2013, addressing funding of future capital projects and recognition of the Noise Tenants Association. As you know, I've been working with the tenants at Noise for about a year now, dealing with a simple fact, and that is that the facility, as grand and wonderful as it is, the physical facility has hit some hard times, and in order for it to continue to move forward, changes need to be made. And I came to you last summer with a plan to meet with the tenants at the Noise Cultural Arts Center to come up with a plan for sustainability, to take the money that was raised there and make sure that it gets reinvested in the long term for the capital needs of the building, but also to make sure that the vibrancy of the good work that's going on there today continues. In the course of those discussions, discussions, the Piven Theater Workshop approached me and said that they were prepared to make a substantial commitment of anywhere between $2.5 and $3 million to invest in the facility. So the discussion that I was having with the tenants, where we were so very focused on taking rent in and making sure that capital improvements could be made with that, was altered slightly, because here we had a main tenant of the building move forward and say that they wanted to make a long-term financial commitment to Evanston, to the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. So that kind of changed the discussion. And rather than it being focused totally on the amount of rent coming in to balance the capital needs, here we have someone who, an organization like the Piven Theater Workshop, to step forward and say they would be willing to make a substantial capital contribution. And that really changed the discussion. Many of the tenants are here this evening. I think there was questions and fear about what would happen to all of the tenants if we move people around. Would some of them be displaced? And then we really moved on to the next important piece, which is included in this resolution, which is a tenants association. And the tenants have not had a voice over the long-term, short-term operation of the facility. And just last Friday, there was an election that was held to have a tenants association there. A 7-member board with staggered terms. So that is now in place to move forward, and they are now going to be the advocates, because one of the things I heard very clearly from the City Council a year ago is make sure everyone is involved, make sure there are open discussions, and I think now with the Tenants Association in place, that will occur. So with all of this, I decided to come to you with a resolution, which is to bring this to the force of law rather than just a minute order or my word as to how this would move forward. So the resolution 39R12 deals with a number of things. First, it deals with changes to tenant lease conditions that will allow for multiple year leases for any of the tenants at the Noyes Center. It's traditionally been a series of 1-year leases that could be as many as 3 years, but they were always renewable 1 year after another. This will allow for extended leases. It will allow for tenants to continue to submit reports certifying their tenancy. I think there was a concern among many of the tenants that was all the space being used as actively as it could be. So now there'll be an opportunity to have those reports more regularly submitted. Tenants will also now be able to sublease their space. That's also been a point of contention that has come out through our year of discussion. And then finally, a declaration at this point, halfway into the fiscal year, that we would look for a rent increase in 2013, and the Tenants Association would be involved with any future rent adjustments. Then there is the piece dealing with capital. Despite the generous commitment that the Piven Theater Workshop has been working with the city to make over an extended period of time, additional capital dollars will need to be made available to the building. And that has been a concern of the tenants in talking with them, that even despite this significant contribution from the Pivens, what about the rest of the building? And so the Tenant Association will work very closely with staff to assure that monies are made available. In discussions with the Piven Theater Workshop, any agreement that we would enter into with between the city and the Piven Theater Workshop would include a dollar amount for capital projects for the entire building. And then the last piece of the resolution deals with the recognition of the Tenants Association and goes into a variety of areas that the Tenants Association would meet and confer with city staff on future leases and future tenancy issues at the Noyes Center. Very exciting time. Over the last year, I think we've been able to, I've been able to work with a group of artists who have not always had a regular communication about their needs, about the things that are going on in the center. And clearly, as I think you've already heard this evening and will likely hear more this evening, the tenants are very engaged in the future of the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. There's a great concern that that center continue to move forward, but also maintain, many of the things that have made it very special, the mix of artists and things. And that discussion continues as to the impact of the Piven Theater Workshop. They will be taking additional space in the building. I think we'll be able to continue to work with the Tenants Association over the course of the next several months to ensure that if there are displaced tenants, which there will be, that they can be relocated in the building in a manner that makes sense. And the discussions with the Piven Theater Workshop certainly have indicated that there are great possibilities to do that. But it's the issue of partnership. It's the issue of making sure that the Noyes Cultural Arts Center really remains and is really looked to not only in Evanston but throughout Chicagoland as a major destination point for the arts, not just for the performing arts but for the visual arts. all the arts that are currently represented there to continue to have that value. And I think the energy and effort that has been moved forward over the last year really puts the building in a different place, and I think puts it on a path to really ensure that it's going to be there to serve all of Evanston for a very long time. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that's the resolution before you. A key component of these discussions have been discussions with the Piven Theater Workshop, and Leslie Brown, its executive director, is here. And I asked Leslie if she wouldn't mind sharing with the committee some of the work that they have done working with city staff and working with this tenants association, which has been sort of in organization. I've met, I think, probably 6 times over the course of the year with the group of tenants as we've been moving toward the Tenants Association. We continue to talk with them. We'll continue to talk now that they're there. But I think it's important that you and members of the community see the vision that the Piven organization has. So Leslie is here to share that with you. And Mr. Chair, if it would be appropriate to answer questions either at that point or after other citizen speakers, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for giving me this opportunity to update you on the progress being made at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center and with Piven Theater Workshop. My name is Leslie Brown, and I have had the privilege of being the executive director at Piven Theater Workshop for the last year and a half. We at Piven greatly value this developing partnership with the City of Evanston and are looking forward to being a part of positive growth and change in the arts community in this town we have called home for 41 years. My goal this evening is to share with you a little history of how Piven came to the table, to show you the original proposal submitted to the city for expanded and renovated space and noise, and lastly, to show you the current proposal which outlines the changes made in response to the feedback received from the city and our fellow tenants. 5 years ago, Piven worked with consultants to create a long-term sustainable plan for our space and for our organization. During that time, we conducted a feasibility study to determine which direction and in which geographical location we should create a new home for the Piven Theater Workshop. During that time, our board members met with Mayor Daley, who wanted to pave the way for our organization to move to Chicago and set up shop in a new community. We investigated buildings and neighborhoods to determine the best course of action for our workshop and developed with Ray Hartshorn, a member of our board and a respected architect in Chicago, a space analysis. It included many discussions with our founder, Joyce Piven, our staff, our community of artists and teachers, our donors and supporters, and members of our advisory, honorary, and current board. Last year, when the City of Evanston began thinking of new ways to make city-owned buildings viable, and there was a question as to the future of noise, we went to the mayor and the city manager and said we were planning to move out of our current space. We are very grateful that the city responded by encouraging us to create a new vision whereby we stayed in our current space and expanded our footprint to model what our organization needed to thrive. What you will see in the first proposal we submitted was in response to the city's request of us. It included what our space analysis told us we required for our business to sustain for the next 50 years, and it was our ideal scenario for our space within the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. It covered the south end of the building from the basement to the second floor. As you proposal, which took over the south end of the building in the basement, it included our space for our teachers, and a flexible classroom. On the first floor, it included a state-of-the-art theater, a lobby, a proper green room, and a box office. And on the second floor, it consolidated our training center where our classrooms would be upstairs in that space. After multiple meetings with the tenants of the building and after presenting this plan to all involved, Mr. Bobkowitz challenged us to listen to the tenants' concerns and asked us to do 3 things. 1, to take less square footage. 2, to inconvenience the least amount of tenants in the process. And 3, to respond directly to the tenants' requests to stay completely out of the basement. After hours with our architect, who has donated a significant amount of his firm's time, we returned with another proposal which responded directly to these three requests. Although we presented our best-case scenario, we are here tonight to update you on our second plan, which includes some significant concessions. It has removed us completely from the basement, it inconveniences fewer tenants, and it takes less square footage. From our estimation, it returns more than 3,000 square foot to the rest of the building. You will see that our intention was to create a beautiful new space which is innovative and inclusive. Our classrooms will double as intimate performance spaces. Our lobby will become the only true gathering community space for Piven and beyond in Noyes that could accommodate groups of people with adequate seating. And lastly, our theater would be a state-of-the-art black box space envisioned and created with a similar feel as Looking Glass Theater in the Water Tower in downtown Chicago. A fine example of another successful partnership between a city with vision and a nonprofit arts organization with the desire to make roots in a welcoming community. In our revised plan, and I apologize, this is the entire footprint of the building. The section that we're referring to is on the left-hand side of the screen, over here. You will see we no longer have any plans in the basement. On the first floor, in this area here, the plan includes an administrative space with a reduced footprint as compared to the original plan, and could accommodate our staff and our teaching and performing artists. At any given time, we employ 20 to 50 individuals. On days where all of our classrooms are in full force, you can imagine the challenge of finding space in our 200 square foot office for teachers to mentor their apprentices, while parents are inquiring about classes, while staff is conducting business, while patrons wish to purchase tickets to a production, and so on. Our office is stacked 4 desks deep in what used to be the boys' bathroom. This plan helps alleviate some of those issues. Additionally, the proposal includes office and rehearsal space for Fleetwood Jourdain Theater. Piven realized that with the city vacating its offices on the first floor, Fleetwood Jourdain would lose its space in this artistic community. Fleetwood's professional productions, teen drama club, drumming circles, and Tim Rose, Fleetwood's artistic director, and artistic voice in this building would no longer be a part of the community in the same way if it had to leave its space in Noyes. In Piven's plan, and I believe we are the only entity in the building that has offered a solution to house Evanston's only African-American theater company, Fleetwood would remain, and Piven would have the privilege to collaborate with Tim and this wonderful group. Also on the first floor, you see the state-of-the-art black box theater along with the lobby and proper green room. What's most exciting about this proposal is that there are plans for 5 spectacular configurations which would maximize the flexibility of the theater, allow for more diversity of offerings, and will have the ability to expand and contract based on audience size. One of the best parts of this new partnership with the city has been its willingness to change its policy that has prevented any tenant in the building to rent out its space when it is dark or not in use. Now, with this new theater, emerging groups and organizations without permanent homes will have the ability to share or rent our space. Suddenly, this new space can be made available for music and dance events, theater productions, even as a beautiful new event space for nonprofits, businesses, and educational institutions. Suddenly, this space can rival the dynamic space which is found at places like the Old Town School of Folk Music, the Beverly Arts Center, and countless others nationwide. Suddenly, Noyes becomes a destination for the arts and a world-class cultural institution. Finally, on the first floor, please notice here how our architect has envisioned an entrance which unifies all groups in the building, creates an accessible entrance in the front, allows for branding not only for Piven but for other tenants, removes the garbage dumpsters from the front of the building and puts in its place an area which could be used as a community patio. And best of all, it makes this building visible from the street and the train. Our vision is about making this an exciting, beautiful, dynamic, and accessible building that serves all the tenants. On the second floor, we have unified our classroom spaces. Although this is the floor with the most tenants affected, we have been very pleased that some individual artists have come to us to discuss ways in which we can collaborate in the future, which includes sharing the space with them. For example, we would be very proud to call vocal coach Faye Kaiser, a noise tenant, our go-to vocal coach in the coming years. Each classroom will be outfitted with track lighting and seating so as to create smaller, more intimate spaces for our classes, which always incorporate performance into the curriculum, but also for smaller companies looking to play a 30 to 40 seat house. We have always believed in that the arts can be an important contributing force to economic development in our community. It's a logical argument for making solid, sustained, and consistent improvements to facilities that house members and organizations within the arts community. When Piven was asked to make a plan which could keep the organization in Evanston long-term, to contribute to the vitality and sustainability of noise, to value the input and concerns of the tenants, and to make a meaningful contribution to this process, I believe we met and exceeded these requirements. Piven has agreed to invest upwards of $3 million in capital improvements to this space. As far as we know, there are no other offers from any other tenant in the building to do the same. Our board of directors has committed to this process and this project as it's currently submitted, because we all believe that this can create sustainability for Piven and the building as a whole. It's a worthwhile investment. We hope the City Council will continue to support this project and will embrace continued investments in the arts. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions at this point before we offer public comment for some of the other people from the Noyes Street Center? Then let's start again with citizen comment, and I believe Sarah, did you want to go ahead, and then Ken Arlen, and then Larry Distasi.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Pietmeyer. I've been a resident artist at Noyes since 1995, and I spoke a little the last time the City Council met on this issue to transparency, the need for us to really be involved. I am a basement artist, and I talked with somebody at Piven about the displacement, and I was shown these beautiful studios, Studio 105 upstairs with lots of light. Richard Halstead, the artist, was leaving his. Artists need light to work with. And instead, I'm finding that I get to keep the small, dingy space, and that others who are artists are going to be put down in the basement. And this is a surprise to me. So here's my statement. There is a value in preserving diversity of the arts, visual arts, music, dance, as well as theater. While we recognize the Piven's capital contribution and applaud it, we want to make sure that there is a limit to the premier space that they take, the space on the second floor with the water and the light, and which isn't so much needed for theater students as it is for artists. We want to make sure that there isn't so much of that space taken that the rest of the community of diverse artists cannot continue to flourish. So I think it sounds like a great plan, but it's a surprise to me is all I want to say, and that I hope that we'll continue to discuss the best possible solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, can we approach the bench with some materials? Tim, if you wouldn't mind passing some things out. I'd like to first start by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to thank our city manager for all of his comments and Leslie for a fantastic presentation. My name is Ken Arlen. I'm the newly elected president of the board of the Noyes Building. I was born and raised in Evanston, as were my children, and I've been a tenant of the Noyes Building for 19 years. When I started 19 years ago, I started with a 10-piece orchestra that performed for special events with 2 staff people. And now my organization produces 14 groups that employ over 85 musicians and staff on a full-time basis, producing 300 performances, not only in Evanston and Chicago, but nationally. We also do exemplary community service. What I'd like to address tonight is, from my vantage point, with the information that we've had from the 6 meetings that we've conducted so far, comprehensive analysis of the economics surrounding the Noyes Cultural Art Building. As Wally referenced, is it okay if I refer to you as Wally? Wally referenced our July 29th meeting, which was actually very inspiring to all of the artists at Noyes. He talked to us about the reality of the economic situation in Evanston, the fact that we had to cut $9 million in 2010, additional cuts in 2011, and we might have to cut down to the bone in 2012. And as Wally has pointed out tonight, he felt that self-sustainability was the goal. The biggest concern for Noyes at that point is not the operating costs, but the covering and need for future capital improvements. And he said to us openly, I'd like your help to try to figure out a way to make Noyes sustainable well into the future. So I'm just going to take a little while to review a model that was created. Wally asked me to put together a group of 6 tenants, kind of a precursor committee to the tenants board that met regularly to flesh out a model, and we did present it to the city in November. And if you turn to page 1 of the document, it's called the Noyes Self-Sustainability Model. And the first thing that we saw was that the Noyes building was only collecting $280,000 of rent, because large amounts of space in the building were being used for other purposes, either recreational or city offices. And we determined by renting all the available space, we could generate a revenue of $408,806, which is an increase of $128,806. With the addition of a 10% rent increase that all of the artists were willing to put as skin in the game, that would represent another $40,000. Noyes could be running a net surplus of $169,000 in 2013. In addition, the Noyes tenants all agreed to grant writing and fundraising activity with the goal of raising an additional $25,000. So the net of all this is that we would be operating with a surplus of $194,000, and knowing that the building was projected to need from $1 million to $2 million of capital improvements, that this $194,000 surplus could pay off these improvements in 5 to 10 years. We also came up with the idea of a capital reserve fund so that all the money generated by Noyes would go into Noyes, which has been embraced. We came up with the concept of a board of directors that was elected last Friday. We talked about the need to keep the community service component, because that's a very valuable asset to the city of Evanston. We talked about the longer term leases, the options to sublet, and more flexibility. All the things that Wally addressed earlier are things that we have been discussing. The goal, of course, was to make Noyes a self-sustainable building well into the future at no cost to the Evanston taxpayer. Now, as Wally indicated, the conversation changed slightly from rent in as a economic model to sitting down with the Piven organization and talking about what their future needs would be in order to keep them in Evanston. And we all know that Piven is a very important institution. It's important to the city of Evanston. But I do believe that the Piven plan has far-reaching implications as it pertains to self-sustainability of Noyes. So I'd like to address some of those points on pages 3 and 4. Leslie pointed out the fact that that a original footprint was created that included the first, second floor, and the basement. When the noise tenants saw that, our response was, would you consider taking first and second floor out to the elevator and not the basement? But we never suggested that they would take first and second floor and then extend down the east corridor as far as they have. So I'd like to let you know that the noise artists, although very much excited about building a state-of-the-art theater and excited about Piven staying in Evanston and excited about an expansion, have been trying to promote a smaller footprint for the noise expansion, one that would allow all the tenants to thrive at noise, keep the maximum level of diversity, and promote community service, also bringing a new vitality and self-sustainability to noise. So if you look at some of my bullet points, currently Piven has 4,260 square feet of space. The plan that was presented tonight would give them 11,666 square feet. Most of the other tenants agree that a smaller footprint that includes the first and second floor out to the elevators would give them 8,820 square feet to develop their needs. It would also, in turn, accommodate space for the other artists in the building and allow there to be a higher level of diversity, as Sarah just pointed out. In 2010 and 2011, we have an April to April fiscal year. We operated at a net revenue of $32,000. So the current Piven proposal removes over $151,000 before any rent increase from the building and creates an operating deficit of over $23,000. So the tenants, myself included, have serious concerns about how that would impact the sustainability of the building. A smaller tenant proposed footprint would remove $113,000 of available rent, and we would actually still be operating at a net in the black of $14,000. And this is, I should point out, before rent increases or fundraising activity. By moving primarily to the first and second floor, the Piven footprint that you saw tonight would take up 69% of the available artist studio space on the first floor and 58% of the available space on the second floor. And please keep in mind that the first and second floor are the premium spaces in the building and also earn the highest rent. The current Piven plan that was presented to you tonight would also displace 5 of the first and second floor tenants with only one potential first or second floor space, 106, available, and 106 was earmarked in our previous discussions as an important space to keep as a city use only space. So technically there's 5 first and second floor tenants that, if they are relocated in the building, would have to move into the basement of the building. I also believe that the current plan and the current footprint reduces artistic diversity in the building. We've already lost Light Opera Works, as I'm sure you all know. We've lost portrait artist Richard Halstead, writer Enid Barron, and photographer Sal Lieberman. All of that since these conversations began. Implementing the current footprint would cause more loss of organizations and artists because available basement space would not fit into their business model or future needs. Ideally, the basement should be reserved for sculpture, ceramic art, artists that use kilns, heat, strong substances. I'm going to ask you to move over to page 4, please.
Yeah.
I
know
can
that
wrap
you
this
have.
up pretty quickly.
Okay, great.
We've heard that tonight that the Piven organization is going to be putting $2.5 million of a financial commitment into the building, but as people who have been given the directive to look at the economics and help the city come up with a plan, it's very confusing where that money is going to come from. If that money is a taxpayer loan, for example, in any way, that would be very similar to a business going into a commercial building and having the landlord say, I will give you a loan for $2.5 million to build out your space, and you don't have to pay rent, And there are other things that we wonder about the economics. Page 4, and I'll finish up very quickly. Will Piven participate in fundraising for the entire building now that they would be raising money to pay off the loans on their space? Would they continue to do the community service? It would be equal to the level of the 15 studios they would occupy. Would they be able to utilize their spaces 25 hours per week, which is the current studio residency requirement? Other economic questions include how will the Evanston taxpayer perceive any city investment, however it's structured as a loan, at the expense of a possible fully sustainable noise building? And if the Piven is given a 50-year lease, what if they can't survive economically over a 50-year period to pay back that loan? And the big question is, while they are paying back that loan, will they be paying rent to the noise building? Because right now, those are 15 studios that are earning rent. And it is my understanding that in the model being proposed, they wouldn't. So there's other questions about utilities, parking, and other fees that the city might want to roll into the Piven plan. In closing, I'd like to say that, again, that Mayor Bobkowitz asked me in September to develop. Yes, sir. To develop a model with a group of tenants and present it to the city, one that would make noise sustainable. And he has embraced many aspects of our self-sustainability model, for which we're very grateful. Unfortunately, the most important aspect, self-sustainability, seems to have been removed from the equation, and all economic matters have been veiled from the tenants. It seems that City Manager Bobkowitz has made a decision to accommodate the needs and reputation of the Piven organization at the expense of self-sustainability of noise, and put the future of many viable artists and organizations in jeopardy. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple more speakers. Larry DeStasi, Jennifer Avery, I believe. Next two speakers.
Thank you very much. I'm Larry DeStasi. I'm co-artistic director of the Actors Gymnasium, Circus and Performing Arts School, one of the Noise Center tenants. I would first like to thank City Manager Bobkowitz and the mayor for all the work that they've been doing supporting the arts and trying to involve us and invigorate the Noise Center and beyond. I would also like to say that I'm very much in favor of the Piven expansion. I think they're a fantastic organization, and they deserve to have a brighter light shined on them. And I find this very exciting for the future of the Noise Center and invigorating the entire place and all of us along with them. My concern is with some of the specifics and details. I'm one of the organizations that will be displaced. Our administrative offices will be displaced in this new plan, as Ken stated, about 5 other organizations. And these are organizations that cannot operate in the basement space. And so I'm very concerned and have great issues with that. I do feel that there is perhaps a middle ground and perhaps an alternate proposal that could take a portion of the basement and use the same square footage that they are now talking about and displace the fewest number of people possible. I think there are, I would just like to urge, as Faye did, that we take time with this and we take care and look out for the well-being of all the amazing artists in this building and hear their voices and try and look at other possibilities. 2 options have been presented and both had big problems. I think there may be a middle ground. So I would just urge that we take our time in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'll be short, quick. My name is Jenny Avery. I'm the artistic director at Next, who has been in residence at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center for the past 31 years. I'm here tonight to say on behalf of our board and staff that Next is very strongly behind Piven's plan. We are excited that Piven has stepped forward to do something that no one else has been able to do in this building for a long time. All of the arts organizations in this building work very hard to produce first-class art, but we are doing that in less than first-class physical circumstances. So the fact that Piven is interested in helping to make this building leap into the 21st century is very exciting for Next, and we feel like it will benefit not only Piven, but it has lots, as Leslie said, ability to help Next and help all of the artists in the building by making it a place that is better to work in and better for patrons to come and visit. So we're very excited about it, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Next two last speakers, Meg Barnhart, is it? You're passing. And Michael Montenegro. Pass as well, thank you. That concludes citizen comment. Are there questions for anyone who's presented, or questions for among ourselves? Comments? Alderman Fisk?
Yes, Wally, could you just address a couple of the issues? I have a sort of laundry list of things. The long-term sustainability of the building itself. I think we've talked for a long time about the physical needs of the building, roof, just the basic building itself. Could you tell us how those needs are going to be met over the next 25 years?
Well, the roof, Alderman Fisk, members of the committee, is probably the biggest issue, and I'm happy to report that we are very close to announcing a grant that we believe will cover the roof's costs. So that, I think, from a financial sustainability, from a capital perspective, removing that burden from any of the scenarios we've talked about this evening is a very significant step. So with the roof removed from the sustainability, then I think you need to look at what will the investment that the Piven Theater Workshop make in the building. I mean, some of the speakers this evening, I think, have kind of glossed over that the money that would be spent is all money investing in the building. So they're looking at taking over, perhaps a third of the building. So all of the interior work that would need to be done over an extended period of time would be done in one focused way with the Piven improvement. So there's certainly other things throughout the building, electrical, other tenant improvements within other parts of the building that will be needed. But my estimation is if you take the roof off the table, you have such a large investment by the Piven Theater Workshop, you still have the rents, and part of the resolution this evening is for the first time to begin segregating those dollars. My sense is that you're going to have sufficient capital dollars available to take care of the building. I think the other question is, from a sustainability standpoint, is who's there and what is going on in the building. I think that the plans that we're looking at, the space needs, will continue to make it sustainable. I think if you kind of roll this to we're talking sort of the best case scenario, let's go back to the worst case scenario. If the Piven Theater Workshop left the building, who would fill that space? Who would pay the rent to fill that space? I'm not sure, looking at the environment right now, that there are arts companies that would be coming to Evanston to fill that space. So then you have empty space, and there are no rents coming in then, or at least a portion, certainly, of that aren't coming in. So I think by having the commitment made by Piven, knowing that Actors Gym, knowing that Next, that the individual creative artists remain there, I think it's a different mix. It's a different kind of catalyst of artists coming together. So I think you have that creative sustainability. I think the capital sustainability will take care of itself, given the investment, given grant dollars. And I think the focus of the Evanston community back on this facility, which quite honestly in my 3 years I just had not seen, I think will provide opportunities for subleasing. You've heard about Piven, but all the tenants, I think, think, have some opportunities for subleasing. That will help reinvigorate their individual artistic companies. I think it's all very positive, but it is a different model. I mean, Mr. Arlen's absolutely correct that it was a very dollar and cents kind of model initially, which really didn't take into account any of the artistic sustainability. It was sort of, here's the steady state, and a lot of the things, again, that are in the resolution before you are things that are moving forward in order to keep the money at the facility, something that probably should have happened a long time ago. But I think what you have before you now with the significant investment from Piven, plus the capital dollars coming elsewhere for the roof, plus then a resurgence of the vibrancy of the artistic efforts at the center, I think satisfy then financial sustainability, but I think they probably not only satisfy but surpass the original thoughts of the artistic sustainability of the facility.
Well, it sounds to me like everything is coming together, and I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. I think when we first started talking about it, I went, oh my gosh, Wally, let's slow down just a little bit and welcome to Evanston. And I think you've really done that. I think you have taken those steps to meet and take into consideration the needs and desires of everyone there. I'm thrilled that Piven is going to stay. And it sounds to me like we're really close, that maybe there's just a tiny...
We're not done. We're absolutely
not done. Yeah, that there's a
tiny
bit more massaging that can be done to make this really the place that everyone wants to be. I'm a little concerned about artists not having the light that they need, and a little bit of loss of that space. And I'd like that discussion to continue. It's a historic building. It's a beautiful building. It was designed by Daniel Burnham. I want to retain that building for its own historical value to the community as well. And I think it's the ideal of preservation to have a wonderful historic building like this move into the next century with a new life, but yet fulfilling its original mission to individual artists, which is basically what it's been used for the past, for as long as I can remember, as long as I've lived in the neighborhood. So I'm happy to hear what you're saying, and I'm happy to hear what the tenants are saying. I'm thrilled to hear what Piven is saying, but I just want to encourage that discussion to continue on so that we end up with the best possible result for all.
And Mr. Chair, Alderman Fisk, if I can just make one other comment. Of course, we have a partner building in this enterprise, and that's the Harley Clark Mansion. Mm-hmm. And as we move forward to look at things there, I want to make sure everyone in the community understands that just because we are looking for alternate uses for that building does not mean that the work that the Evanston Arts Center is changing. Quite to the contrary. Again, this is another piece of this resurgence where the board of the Evanston Arts Center and Nora Dietrich, their executive director, is here. They have also risen to this occasion to say, we can do something different. And, by them looking and us working together to vacate that property over the next while does not mean that anything changes. The only thing that probably changes with the Evanston Arts Center is increased activity and increased programs to support the vibrancy of the visual arts. We've been talking a lot on performing arts this evening, but really the Evanston Arts Center is that cornerstone of the visual arts here in Evanston. And just because they're looking for facilities outside their current lakefront home doesn't mean they're going away. So we want to make sure that everyone in the community understands that this is also a part of this larger arts puzzle that is only going to strengthen the Evanston Arts Center, make them more accessible in the community. They're not going away by any stretch of the imagination. And unfortunately, because of the discussions we've been having regarding the Harley Clark Mansion, I think there are some in the community who may be confused. So I want to take this opportunity to really reinforce that this is an opportunity for the Evanston Arts Center also to broaden their rings, and just the kind of the investment that Piven is making. I think the Evanston Arts Center and their board are looking to make sure that they're here for the long haul as well.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The staff is asking this committee approval or recommendation of a resolution that really doesn't touch upon the Piven proposal at all.
That's
really
correct.
Has all to do with this great new tenants association and changes to the terms of the leases that operate at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. So I'm going to move that we recommend approval of Resolution 39R12, authorizing the city manager to implement those proposed changes to the noise center's tenant lease conditions, as set forth in the memo.
Any additional discussion?
I just had one other question. How many artists, individual artists, are being displaced?
At this point, I don't think we have a number.
This is just concerning the
No,
association.
Yeah, no, I know, but I just...
At this point, we don't have a number.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item for consideration, the two that we skipped over, HH2, recommendation for Justin Wind Fund 25th Anniversary Mural.
Move approval.
Any discussion? Anyone here to speak? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. HH3, recommendation for McGall YMCA Children's Center mural.
I move approval.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Thank you. I have no communications unless staff does. Thank you. Next meeting is Monday, July 2nd at 7:30 p.m. Move adjournment.
The shelf's gone.